Hello everybody, welcome to the 10th module of this training. Okay, till now in the first 9 modules you have studied about Java, you have studied about object oriented programming, right, and you have also studied about the JUnit framework, fine, and we will now look at Selenium IDE. Okay. Now some of you might have worked on Selenium IDE, some of you might not have worked, some of you might be having some partial knowledge on IDE. Okay. In this course, in coming 3-4 days, I will be just talking about IDE, what it does, what it cannot do, okay, what is the alternate for IDE. I'll talk about everything, okay, each and every feature of IDE, and after that we will move over to Selenium Webdriver. Okay. Those of you who want to continue with RC, they can join the RC course. Fine. Now, coming over to IDE, fine. These are the topics which we will be covering in IDE. Okay. Now, in Crux, I'll take just 10 minutes to explain what we will be doing in next 3-4 days. Fine. First, we will be seeing how to install IDE. Right, we will see some basic scripts on IDE. Okay, we will see about XPATHS, Firebug. If you don't know right now, don't worry. Okay, we will see how to extend IDE, how to introduce your own user extensions and all. We will parameterize our test cases in IDE. Okay, we'll study about some of the important commands in IDE, and we will also be studying about regular expressions. That is, how to handle regular expressions in IDE. Right, that's very important, and we'll be studying about how to handle pop-ups, tab browsing, how to capture screenshots, how do we handle AJAX calls with IDE, how to test your Flash-based applications with IDE. Fine. Now, for this purpose, I'm taking the website Salesforce.com. Okay, and I will be automating these 5 test cases on this website Salesforce.com. Now, before we start looking at various features of IDE and how to install IDE and other stuff, let me tell you about this Salesforce application, because this is the application which I will be taking from the very beginning and for next 3-4 days, and I will be automating various test cases on it. Now, the Salesforce.com is a website. It's basically a CRM. Okay. It helps the salespeople to keep a record of their potential customers. That is, if a customer is calling the sales department of a particular company, an agent will have a login into this application. He can log in, he can note down the requests for each and every customer. He can actually schedule his own tasks and all. There are a lot of features in the CRM. Fine. So we will try to automate some of them. For example, we will be studying about, we will be automating the login. Okay. Then we will be automating this part, like we will check the date through regular expressions. We will validate the date through regular expressions, right? We will be generating a new lead. That is, suppose a potential customer calls up, you have to fill up this form and you have to save his data. So we will be making this test, fine, and we will be making a test for creating a task, for deleting a task, and these are some of the topics which we will be covering in these tests. Okay, that is how to attach files, pop-up handling and all, right? Later on, when we have made these tests, okay, we will parameterize them. Okay, we will parameterize them with the help of an XML file. Okay. In IDE, you can parameterize your test cases with the help of XML file like this. Okay. For example, the first test case is the login test. The second test case is the create lead test. The third test case is the create task test. Right? So for each and every test case, I have kept my test data in this XML. Okay. For the login test, I have kept 2 sets of test data. That means that I need to execute the login test 2 times using IDE. IDE will automatically read that the login test is there, is actually to be executed 2 times. There are 2 sets of data for this login test, and it will execute it 2 times. Okay. If you want to know about XML, then we will also study about XML. If you cannot understand this document, I will be telling you that. Fine. So this is a brief overview of what we are going to do. What we're going to do in coming 3 to 4 days. Okay. If you're not able to understand, fine, not a problem. Let's start right now. As we proceed with the course, you'll be able to understand. Right. So the first thing is, what is IDE, what is RC, and what is WebDriver? Okay. Some people, they come and ask me the question, when Java is not used in IDE, Selenium, why do we use Java? Okay. Some people ask me the question, what is the difference between Selenium IDE, Selenium RC, and Selenium WebDriver? Okay. So the difference actually goes like this. 5 years back, okay, when I started working on Selenium, 5 years back, yeah. So in nearly 2005, I guess, when I saw it first, there used to be IDE out that time. This was the IDE. Okay. This something known as RC was also present. Okay. This is your IDE, and this is the RC. Okay. Now you can make your test cases in IDE as well as RC. Okay. But the thing is, RC is a little bit more comfortable to use. It is a little bit more dynamic to use. But the only thing is, you need to be knowing any one of the programming languages like Java or Ruby, C#, PHP, and many others, right? So in this course, we are doing it with Java, right? Now for IDE, you don't need any programming language, but you need to know, if you know JavaScript, then it's then that will be an advantage for you in IDE. Okay. Now what's the difference between these two? If you have seen any automation tool, then every automation tool has a record and run feature. That's there in IDE. That's not there in RC. RC is plain Java code which you write in Eclipse. If you execute that code, the testing starts, the browser opens. Okay. IDE is something which has got a user interface. Alright. And then why did they make RC? So I get a question like, if IDE can just record run your applications and it can test your applications, then why did they make RC? Okay. This is because when your test cases, they become quite large in number, it really becomes very difficult to maintain them through IDE. That's the first reason. Okay. The second reason is that sometimes while using IDE, it can be really frustrating to use it, because I have experienced that whenever you run it, okay, if you are executing a test case of say 100 lines in IDE, you will sometimes get a very different output, sometimes you'll get the correct output. It happens sometimes, okay, very rarely. If your test case is stable, then that's not going to happen. But developing a test case on IDE takes a little bit of time and effort, right? And plus you need to know JavaScript in detail. Okay, if you're working on IDE and you really want to make it big in IDE, you need to know, go inside JavaScript and learn a lot of stuff. Okay. Now RC requires just the plain Java language. Okay. That Java language actually interacts with the core of Selenium, which is made in JavaScript. Okay. With IDE also you interact with core. With RC you interact with core. Okay. And the core is made in JavaScript. Okay. The commands are almost the same in between both of them. Now what happened over a period of 3-4 years, people saw a lot of disadvantages in RC. Okay. So they started making something known as WebDriver. So WebDriver is the latest version which has come up, and it is actually better than RC, and it supports the old code of RC as well. Okay. Now if somebody tells me that okay fine, automate this project, I will definitely prefer WebDriver. Okay, I never use automation, I never use IDE for my automations, although you can use it, but I never use it because I find WebDriver to be easy. Soon you will find it out how. Okay, there is a lot of difference between WebDriver and RC. They have changed everything. There is 100% change between RC and WebDriver. Okay, but WebDriver supports the RC code, right? So let's start with IDE. Okay, and we will see the various features present in IDE now. Right. The first thing which you need to know is that how to install IDE. Okay, I have it installed in my browser Mozilla Firefox. IDE gets installed as an add-on in Mozilla Firefox. Okay, if you go to Tools menu, then this will be the Selenium IDE option over here. Okay, and now how do you integrate Selenium IDE into Mozilla? You just have to open Mozilla, go to Google and type Selenium download. Fine. Go to the first link, and out here this is the Selenium IDE latest version 1.1.0. Okay, it is not supported by a Firefox 3.6. Make sure you have got Firefox 5.0 when you are installing it. Okay, when you click on it, it gets installed as an add-on in your Firefox. After you restart your Firefox after installing it, you will get the option of Selenium IDE in your Firefox. Okay, now that's one of the major disadvantages. Selenium IDE only works in Firefox. RC can work in multiple browsers. WebDriver can work in multiple browsers. But Selenium IDE will only work in Firefox. Fine. Now, once you have installed it, you open this IDE. Right. The window looks something like this. Right. Now, it's a tool which has got a user interface. It's not like Eclipse, in which we used to write the Java code in JUnit, which we saw in the previous lectures. Right. Now, it is something which is very simple in nature and you can easily understand the functions, right? Like every automation tool, it's got a record button over here. Now recording. When you open IDE, by default it is in recording mode. Okay, what do I mean by default it is in recording mode? That is, after opening IDE, suppose if I go to my website salesforce.com. Okay. And after going here, I click on the button, say login, right? And after that, I enter my username and password. Okay. So if you look at IDE now, there will be various commands which will be generated over here. This is because the IDE is currently in recording mode. To stop the recording, you click on this button and the recording will stop. Okay. Now this is your base URL, the first thing. Okay. This is the base URL and this is the URL after the base URL. Okay. Let us talk about it in detail. Right. Now if you see this section out here. Okay, this section, then this section has got three columns: command, target and value. Okay, now what is command first of all? Right, command is something which is coming from this drop down. Okay, these are all the commands which are available in IDE. Right, we will be studying about most of them. Right, and if you want to introduce your own command in this drop down, you can do that. Okay, we will study about it later on in user extensions. For example, the command open. Open means that open a URL, right? And in the target, you give the URL, that is the sub URL after your base URL, right? That is, if I have to open this URL, then the name of my website will be in the base URL and the part after this will be in the sub URL. that is the target. Fine. Okay. Now after that, it has given the command click and wait. Okay. Then type and then again type. Right. We will be looking at these commands shortly. Okay. But first, let us run the script which has been generated. Right. You can run the script through this button over here. Play the current test case. Okay. Out here on the left hand side, this is your test case name. You can save the test case. The test case gets saved from here as a normal txt file, .txt file. You can save it, right? So when you run this test, see the commands will be repeated. It will go to the landing page. Click on the login button, and on the next page, it will enter the username and the password. Wait a minute. See that? Right? Okay. Now, let us see how this happens. Okay. How Selenium is able to identify that I have to specifically click on this login button. Okay. Or I have to specifically write the username in this input box. Okay. So it is done with the help of target. Okay. Target is something which uniquely identifies your element on the page. Right. Now, for example, in order to investigate each and every element on the page, you need to know about Firebug. Okay. You need to install Firebug in your Mozilla Firefox. Right. How do you install Firebug? You go to Tools, Add-ons, right, and search for an add-on called Firebug. Alright. Once it is there, fine, you can. It will come in the option over here. It's not coming for me. Firebug 1.8 will come for you, right? Because Firebug is already installed on my Mozilla. You see this Firebug 1.8.0, right? Now, after installing Firebug, you go to Google and you have to install something known as FirePath. Okay, FirePath also adds inside your Mozilla Firefox. Okay, FirePath is an extension over Firebug. It gets installed on Firebug, right? What these Firebug and FirePath do, I'll tell you later on. But for time being, just click on this button, add to Firefox, and it will be added to your Firefox. Right? Now, after you have restarted your browser after installing Firebug and FirePath, if you go to Tools again, you will get the option of Firebug over here. Okay, you click over here, open the Firebug, and the Firebug will open out here. Right. FirePath is out here. It's got installed as an add-on on the top of Firebug. Right. Now, how do we use it? Okay. For example, I am on the site gmail.com. And over here, I have an input box called username, password, and the sign in button. Right. Now, if you want to check the internals of each and every element on this page, you will be using Firebug, right? And you will be using this in Selenium RC as well, in WebDriver as well, and in IDE at places you will be requiring this. Fine. So how do we find that? You click on this arrow out here. Okay? Click an element to inspect. Click an element in page to inspect. Okay. Now it will start inspecting the page. Right, and you move your mouse over the username field and click on it. Right, so out here in the code, this is the source code of the page in which you have the username field. Okay, it's nothing but an input box with an ID, email, this class, type, value, size, and email. Fine. Size is the property which tells you the length of this input box. ID, email, and class GAIALE val, these are assigned to it by the developer. Okay, and type is text. That means it's a text box, right? So, and the name of this text box is email. The ID is also email, right? Similarly, if you go to your Salesforce application, right, and you investigate your login link over here, which we are clicking with the use of click and wait command. Okay, if you look at this in your Firebug, then this is the code for that login image. This is basically an image. Fine. Now, if you look at this, CSS equals to canvas. This property over here. Okay. This defines that on this page there is an element whose CSS name is canvas. Okay. This is the canvas. Fine. If you look at the target over here, the property is defined out here, and if you click on this drop down, you will get lot of other ways to identify this option, this element. Okay, the best way to identify an element uniquely is the way with XPATHS. Fine. Now, what is XPath? What is the XPath? You will actually come to know. I'll just explain it to you. Right. You can also identify with the help of these elements. For example, if I go and use my Firebug over this username field, right, then you see that it's an input box with ID username. Okay. Now Selenium has written over here ID equals to username. Type is the command. Type in this input box with an ID equals to username and type the value, the email ID. Fine. Now there is only one element on the page whose ID is username. So Selenium will be able to identify it uniquely and type in the username. Right. Similarly, the password box is password. Okay. Now it's not just on the basis of IDs and CSS. You can actually identify your elements. Right? You can also identify, and the best way to identify an element is with an XPath. Right? Now, what is an XPath? Okay. If I move my mouse over the username field, then in Firepath option, you will get the XPath over here. Okay. This is the XPath. Now, what does XPath tell you? XPath is like a unique address for each and every element on the page. For example, in your area there are 100 houses. Right? Each and every house will have a distinct address. Right? Similarly, on a web page, each and every element have a distinct address called an XPath. For example, this is an image out here. Don't miss the cloud computing. Right? If you move your mouse over here, then this is the XPath of that image, and in the end IMG is written. That means it's an image. Okay. If you look at this link and you use Firepath over this link, then this is the XPath of this link. Okay, don't include dot in the XPath, right? And XPath, it is something which is unique for every element. In case of a link, XPath will always end with A, the anchor tag. Okay. In case of an image, the XPath will always end with IMG tag. In case of a button on a page, this is a button, right? Okay. The XPath will look like this. that is the ID of this button is login. Okay. Now you can also get like the XPath for this forgot your password link. This is the XPath for this link, the unique address. Fine. Now in IDE, I can tell IDE that fine, don't identify the username on the basis of this ID equals to username. You can identify it with the help of XPaths. Now you see that these three are the XPaths. Okay, these are on the basis of attributes. This is on the basis of relative XPath. Okay. Now I have told you the XPath is unique for every element. Okay. Now how come multiple XPaths are coming for each element? For example, for this input box of username, I have got these two XPaths. Right. Now the answer to this is that if you go to your application and see the XPath for the username, then this is the shortest available XPath. Okay. If you want to see the full XPath, that is from the very root of HTML document, okay, you see this generate absolute XPath, check on this, okay, and then again analyze the XPath, right. This is the absolute XPath, that is from the very root of the HTML document. We don't use this one, okay, although they both point towards the same address, the same field. We use this one, that is the shorter one, which tells you that the ID is username. Okay. Now this comes over here. The second one is a little bit bigger than this, right? It actually is coming from the form, right? You can use any one of these. They point towards the same element. Similarly, for password, these are the possible values you can put in. Okay, I prefer putting in XPaths or IDs, whatever it is, you can do that. But generally, while working with Selenium RC and WebDriver, I always use XPaths. Fine. Some people say that XPaths they make the script slow and blah blah. It doesn't. I never experienced that. It's even if it's making slow. If I'm having around 100 test scripts, if the whole script gets delayed by 5-10 minutes, it doesn't matter, right? So these are the basic commands which we just saw after recording, like open, click and wait, type and type, right? And these are the values which we type into the input box. Right now the values over here, if I can change the value over here and the different value will be typed in the input box when you run this using this run button. Fine. Now later on, what we will do is we will parameterize this test. That is, instead of hard coding the value over here, we will be reading the value from an XML file. That is, we will be reading the username and password from this file. Okay. See, this represents that this is my login test, and inside this I have got two sets of test data tag. Okay, test data tag opens here and closes here, and in between each test data I have a tag for username and password, right? So later on we will be reading the usernames and passwords from this XML file, right? But first we need to know about more commands. For example, a command like click and wait. Why is it like click and wait? Okay, you can edit the command from here. If I write just click over here, if I write CLI, then you get all possible commands starting with CLI. If I just write click, okay, what's going to happen? The thing it will just click on the login image, and immediately after clicking on this login image, it will start to find this username input box and it will fail. Okay, let's see, let's run this again. See, this will go to Salesforce, click on login, right? Okay, and you see that the red mark over here, it tells you that it wasn't able to find the username field. So you have to write the command click and wait. Click and wait will wait. We'll click on a link or a button or whatever it is, and it will wait for the full page to load. Okay, and the maximum time which is inbuilt in Selenium IDE is 30 seconds. That is, it will wait for the next page to load within 30 seconds, and if the page never loads up, it will simply stop the script. Okay. Now out here in the window, you have a log window. Inside the log window, you have got logs generated for each and every step which was executed. The open command was executed, then click and wait, then type, right? Let me clear the logs. You can clear the logs from here and again execute. See that? The logs will keep on coming. Open command is executed. Now the click and wait command is executed. Now the type commands are executed. If I just give the click command and not ask Selenium to wait for at least 30 seconds for the next page to load fully, okay, it will fail. Now if the next page loads in 15 seconds, so Selenium will continue further doing its work after 15 seconds. It will not wait completely for 30 seconds. 30 seconds is the time, is the max time, right? If the next page loads in 3 seconds, Selenium says fine, let's move forward, right? If I execute this again, then the new log will be appended in the old log, and you will get an error message like this, that this element was not found. Fine. So now you can also execute the script line by line. That is, suppose I just want to execute the first command open. Okay, these are some of the small features which I am telling you. You can double click on it and only one line will be executed. Fine. Now if I double click on the line command click over here, so it will click on this login image. See that? Now I double click on type, so it will type my username. Now I double click on the password and it types my password. Okay, so by double click you can actually execute one line at a time. Right, and you get the log for that as well. Right. Now if you click on the command, you get in reference, you get the description of that command as well. Right. If you want to inquire about any of the commands, you can select that command from this drop down. Okay, and you will get the description of that command. Right. You can also press Ctrl Z and the previous commands will come up. Right. Now you can also debug this script. Okay, you can debug the script which IDE has made. For example, I want to start debugging it from this line, from the line click, from the line having the command click and wait. Okay, so I right click on this and select this option, toggle breakpoint. Okay, so when I click on this symbol will come over here. That is, when I run this code, the script will just stop on this line and wait for my instructions to carry on. So the script has just stopped on this line. It's not executed the line number 2. Now this button over here will be highlighted, the step button. Okay, when you click on it, the current step will be executed. Right, and the control will go over to the next step. Okay, it's still getting executed. Right. Now the next page is fully loaded. Now you see this line type it is slightly in yellow color. That means that this yellow line means that this step is waiting for my approval to be executed. Okay, so when I click on this arrow again, the next step will be executed. When I click on this arrow again, the next step will be executed. Okay, so this is how you debug your code line by line in IDE. Okay. Now you can remove the debug breakpoint by right clicking on it and clicking the toggle breakpoint option again. Okay. Now this is how you can execute the code line by line. These are some of the simple features which I am explaining you, and I will be later using them to automate the Salesforce application. Right. Now if you see the speed of execution, then it is very fast. You can slow down the speed execution with this bar. If I make it over here, then now and run the code will run a little bit slow. The script will execute a little bit slowly. And in between, if I want to pause the script, I can click on this pause button and the script will pause. See that? After, if I again click on it, the script will resume. Okay. So the basic things which we have studied till now is that there is a command, and there are a lot of commands which can be seen through this drop down. Okay. You can add your own customized commands through extensions that we'll talk later on. There is a target, okay, and there is a value. The value is generally the value which you need to enter into the application, which you want that that particular value should be entered into your application. Fine. Now suppose tomorrow I want a random email address to be generated and entered into that email box. Fine. So for that, again, this simple IDE code will not help. You will have to use extensions in IDE. There are various extensions which you can bring in IDE. Fine. But before going over to those topics like extensions and all, let us study about the basic commands which are inbuilt inside IDE. Okay. For example, after opening the home page, right? After opening the home page of Salesforce.com, I want to verify whether the title of this page is correct or not. Okay, so that means that I need to introduce a command between open and click wait. Right. So I will right click on this click wait and give the option, you select the option insert new command. Right. And I will give the command name as verify title. You have a command called verify title. Okay. And in the target of this command, you have to give the expected title which you want. Right. So you can write here the expected title like this. You can go to the application, right? This is the title on the top. If you want to get it, you right click on it and view the page source. Fine. In the page source, just type Ctrl F and title. Just search for this string and you will get the title over here. This is the title of the page. You copy this and you paste it in the target over here. Fine. So you will verify this title. Okay. If I double click on verify title line, this will execute. So if I double click on it right now, this will execute and print. Okay, let me execute it again. So I double click on it. This is printing execute verify title, and this is the title. Okay. Now if I deliberately change the title, I add 1 2 in front of it and double click on this particular line, then this will show in red. That means that the title is not correct. Okay. Now if you run the whole code, right? If you run the whole code, I clear the log and I will run the whole script. Sorry, not the code but the script. This is not a code, this is simple recorded script. See, the verify title has failed, it's in red, but the script is continuing to move forward. Alright. So that means that even if the verification fails, the script will never stop. Alright, this is the very basis of verification commands. If you just type verify, you will have lot of commands starting from verify. Verify alert not present, verify all buttons, all fields, all links. I never use these commands, all buttons, all links and all. Generally the command which is used is verify title. This is the most frequently used command. Then verify text is very important command. Then verify element present. This is a very important command, right? So the basic thing is that verification basically means that your script will report a failure, but it will not stop. Alright. But on the other part, there are a set of assertion commands, like we studied in JUnit in module 8. We studied about assertions in JUnit, right? Similarly, assertions are over here as well, like assert title. If I give the command assert title instead of verify title and run the code, now the code will stop on the second line. It will not move forward. Okay. So basically the difference between assertion commands and verification commands is that assertion stops, verification never stops. If you look at the log, assertion has stopped on this line. Okay. Now it depends on you whether you want to use assertion or verification. Suppose you are just checking, you are going to write in an input box, okay, and you check with a verification command that whether that input box is existing or not. For example, I have to click on this login image, fine. I will use assertion over here. Okay, I will use verification for the title, but I will use an you can drag the command also by simply dragging it like this. Okay, and out here in this line you can use an assertion. Assert element present. This will be the command. Assert the element present. Which element? The login element, right? We have the target for this login element, that is CSS equals to canvas, right? Now if the login image is somehow not present in the website tomorrow, the code will just stop over here. So it completely depends on my requirement. But if the title becomes wrong, I'll say fine, report the title but continue the test. Fine. So if you double click on assert element present over here, this will pass, right? And if you run the whole code, then verification will fail, the code will continue to execute, okay, and it will move towards the next page. But if this element with CSS equals to canvas is not present, then the script will just stop on this line. See, it is showing this line in red. That means this test has failed. The title was not good, okay, because I deliberately introduced 1 and 2 in the title. Right. Now sometimes what happens is that you are verifying a title and the title of the page is constantly changing. For example, the title of your Gmail inbox, it holds the number of unread mails. The number of unread mails will always change. So for verifying that kind of titles, you need to use regular expressions in your target over here. So we will be talking about regular expressions gradually. Okay. So let's first concentrate on verifications and assertion commands. Fine. Now suppose after reaching this page, I want to check whether this remember my username text is present on this page or not. Okay. So I will use verification here. Alright. After clicking and waiting on the image, I will introduce a new command. Right click on the line and above that click on insert new command, and above that line the new command will be inserted. Okay. So after clicking on the image, I will verify whether this remember username text is present or not. So for checking the text, the command is verify text present. Okay, and you can give what you can give. You can, so in verify text present, you will actually copy this text, and in the target you will place the text. Fine. Now if you double click on it, this will report a pass. Now the question arises, many people ask me, what if the position of this text changes? What if the text from this position it moves to the rightmost corner of the page? Then also IDE will tell me that fine, the text is present, your work is done. Okay. Now what if I just want to verify the text on the basis of XPath as well, right? Is that on the basis of position as well. So position is directly proportional to XPath. Okay. In your page, when you see the XPaths, this XPath uniquely identifies the element and the position of the element as well. Tomorrow if the position of this element changes, then the XPath will also change. Alright. So you can actually use the verify text present command on the basis of XPath. You can tell IDE that this is a XPath and this text should be present on this XPath. Right? We will be looking at this later on when we actually see how to work with variables, if statements, and loops, how to use extensions. That's again. Okay. So for time being, we'll use the simple command verify text present. Okay. So now after that, in the end, I want to introduce a new command, that is clicking on the login button. I can simply record. I can start recording again. Click on this record button and click on the login command, so it gets recorded. But make sure you have highlighted the line first on which you want to record. Right. So the command is click and wait on the button with an ID login, and after that this page opens up. Okay. Now on this page, I want to put an assertion. I will put an assertion, assert text present. Okay. And which text? My name. Whether my name is present or not after logging in. Am I getting the right name? Later on we'll read this name and all everything from the XML file. We will parameterize it so that when user 1 logs in, his name is read from the Excel file. When user 2 logs in, his name is read from the XML file. Right? Not the Excel file, sorry, from the XML file. If you double click on it, this is passing right now. If I write Ashish Thakur 1, it will fail. Okay. So this is a very simple test case. Alright. And this test case is your login test. It's very simple. I've just used verification assertions and I have hard coded the values. Right. So you can save this test. Okay. I will save it as a test suite because later on I will be adding more test cases into this test suite. Alright. So I will write save test suite and I will save it in my D drive in a folder called Salesforce. Right. So D drive Salesforce. right? Okay, so now I have executed the login test. Alright, this is a very simple one. Later on, we will be seeing how to execute a little bit complex ones as well. For example, the create new task test. In this, you will be required to handle with pop-ups. You will be handling this pop-up. Then in this pop-up over here, you will be attaching a file inside a pop-up. Okay, using Selenium IDE, and later on we will parameterize all these values as well. Fine. I'll just give this a better name. I will give it a name as login test. Right. So it will be changed in the saved modules as well. Right. Now if you want to make a new test case after this, you can click on file and say new test case, and this will be the new test case. You can remove it as well, you can do anything. Right. So that's it, right? Now coming back to what we learned. Okay, we learned about installing IDE, how to basically record run, how to what is a command, what is a target, what is a value, right? We learned about identification mechanism, XPATHS, IDs. We saw sometimes CSS is also there, right? And we can run the test, we can debug the test, we can pause it in between, and if you double click on any line, that test case will repeat itself. Fine. So we're gonna do this much for today. Tomorrow we will learn about the user extensions and all, and we will see about some more commands out here, right? So that's it.